Thoughts, unlike thinking, are an unconscious process and the result of the ego fears drawn over our minds. When we think about how much and why we are angry, how bad-tempered and depressed we are, or when we simply cannot stop our thoughts, it's all our ego. They also cause physical and psychological suffering, and that is why we often talk about negative thoughts. However, they are not negative nor positive thoughts. They are only thoughts that are inherently negative because when we can't sleep from our own thoughts, no matter what we think, then thoughts don't seem positive, do they? Or, if thoughts can be positive, why is the maximum punishment in the prison system solitary confinement, that is, being left at the mercy of one's own thoughts? Most of our negative thoughts are just that, thoughts, not facts. Reality or the fact itself is never a problem, but only our reaction to that same reality. When we think there are positive thoughts, let's remember if we ever thought positive thoughts. Did we think love or did we just feel it? Did we think confidence or we were simply confident? It is a state, not thoughts and feelings, because we are at our best when we are not thinking. And emotions created by thoughts, they say that they are an inseparable part of the human personality. Or maybe they are not. Emotions are like mud in a clean glass of water. When the glass and the water are clean, everything we see is truly as it is, no matter what it is. When our ego works and the water gets dirty and turbulent, everything we see through the murky water of emotions, positive and negative, is wrong and distorted. Because of our emotions, we did not see reality as it really is. We saw it as it could be, as it was, as we think it should be, but not as it is, the bare and cold truth. To understand precisely what it means to be emotional, we must first understand that, as with thoughts, there are not positive and negative emotions. All emotions are negative. How is it possible and how to recognize them? It is actually quite simple. Just don't confuse the positive emotions caused by ego satisfaction with the state of love. There are two simple ways to learn to tell them apart. Ego satisfaction is always extrinsic, caused by something or an idea from the outside world, while the state of love is intrinsic and comes from our inner world. You can only be truly grateful for reality, whatever it is, and gratitude does not depend on external influence. Second, all emotions, both positive and negative, no matter how intense they are always passing. When we reach the state of love and emotionally so mature, that state is no longer temporary. Joy, love, and happiness are constantly present and selflessly shared. I know it is so rare that we may not even know anyone like that. But just because it's rare doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means it's precious. If we buy a car that comes from our desire to prove ourselves and not because of a need, it will cause us happiness, joy, and gratitude. At least we think that's what these emotions are called. In reality, it is true that it is ordinary ego satisfaction. And that ego satisfaction will tie us to that thing or idea and make us chase again that feeling of happiness we felt when we first got our ego satisfied. And in doing so, we will move away from the truth, true joy and gratitude, our potential and purpose. Because we will focus on, in this case, cars and consider them important because it causes us happiness. Are this happiness, joy and gratitude then positive? And these emotions caused by a new thing will last shorter or longer, but only for a while until we desire something else. If that same car is stolen or damaged, we will feel anger and rage, followed by grief and sadness. But this too shall pass, and after that, there will be only emptiness. If we meet the love of our life, it will cause us love that will last again for some time. And love will make it impossible for us to see our partner correctly, even if he's objectively wrong for us. Because we don't love that person, we love how we feel around them. Given that it distorts our perception and prevents us from seeing the truth, is love then positive just because we feel good? When we get in argue for any reason, disappointment with that love will follow, and consequently sadness. And that disappointment and sadness will pass, and there will be emptiness again. In both cases, both positive and negative emotions were temporary and caused by an external factor, a car or a partner. It's like we've given the remote control to things or ideas to control how we feel. If the external factor is favorable, we are happy. If the external factor is unfavorable, we are unhappy. Both are the path of the ego, because neither praise nor punishment should motivate us. Or let's say someone is immature and wants to hurt us out of his own weakness by saying something ugly with the intention of offending us. If he succeeds, it is our weakness and immaturity, not someone else's. It's easy to understand and apply. How? Very simple. As always, follow the truth and the truth will set you free. There are two interpretations. Either the person who told us something is right, and the only problem is our ego, which cannot face the truth. Or he is wrong. Then it absolutely does not matter what he did, because we understand that he did it out of his own weakness. If we get angry at the truth or someone else's weaknesses, we are to blame and are responsible for our suffering, no one else. We don't want to give our environment so much power over us and the ability to manage us in that way. A mature person cannot fall in suffering because he understands that the state of ego can only be caused by himself.
With this, he fully assumes responsibility and ensures his freedom. And yes, very ugly things can happen to us, like to me, like to everyone else, bad experiences. Because no one has kept life in reality, not even the most enlightened. Even in the worst case, if someone abuses us and we are in poverty or ill, this is unfortunately an experience that our soul must go through. Because sooner or later, everyone will go through bad and painful experiences. There is nothing bad or good about it. It is like everything else, just an experience that we must collect and learn from. As if we want to raise our own child without anything bad ever happening to him. He simply wouldn't understand the fullness of life without those bad experiences. And not only that, will our emotions solve the situation, or will it be easier to solve the problem with a cold head, without emotions? It is easier to deal with reality without emotions, whatever it may be. Depending on the degree of one's emotional maturity, there are three ways in which people less or more successfully deal with thoughts and emotions that we all feel. If the ego speaks to us often and directly, it is probably telling us that we are not good enough, or that we will not succeed, that we are not important, all other abominations that comes to our mind. And we trust our ego and its thoughts, and surrender and identify with these emotions. Depending on our ego, we will either direct our anger to others and hurt them, or keep it inside and hurt ourselves. If we are sad and share it with others, we will become difficult for the environment. And if we keep it inside, we will become depressed. Whatever we do with those same emotions, we are bound to make mistakes. That's why emotionally mature people, when they are in a bad mood, distance themselves from those same thoughts and emotions, let them pass and don't get attached to them. They don't allow their focus to be dragged down by thought and emotion. In other words, they do not trust their own thoughts and emotions because they understand that their ego is trying to convince them of this illusion. We are not our thoughts and emotions. If you remember only one sentence from the entire series, please remember this one. We are not our thoughts and emotions. When we believe in our thoughts and emotions, we suffer. When we don't believe, we don't suffer. It is so simple to understand the concept of peace. But if we believe in them, we become our thoughts and emotions. If we think life is unfair, we will not see fairness anywhere. The more mature among us go even one step further. Not only do they distance themselves from their thoughts and emotions, but they recognize them as an alarm from their soul that they are not following the truth. Thus, they use them as a landmark to find the ego challenges and the fears behind them. Confronting these fears and thus overcoming them, as a reward, they turn to thinking and creation. That is, they silence the ego and turn to love. Because it's logical. If we are selfish or resentful and we overcome it, all possible thoughts and emotions will consequently disappear and we won't even have to deal with them. If we are afraid of something, let's face that fear. Confidence and love will be born from it. It is important to act and silence the ego, not to focus on thoughts and emotions. And finally, it is extremely important to note a crucial rule regarding emotions. Emotions should never be controlled and suppressed or tried to be replaced with positive ones, because this is short-term and even counterproductive. They are here to wake us, not to be ignored or forcibly changed. Ignoring and suppressing will only lead to further suffering. Let's rather listen to what they want to tell us and what they want to teach us. They just want to show us that we are doing something wrong and that we are not dealing with some of our ego fears that we should face. How quickly do you react emotionally, and how easy the outside world is influencing you? Our words and deeds are what matters and what defines us, not what we think. A mind driven by ego or love leads us all to the ultimate goal, action. Gentle, wise and good for all spoken words, and consequently selfless deeds. Even though our ego will certainly appear and consequently wrong thoughts, it is only important what we say and do. They can also be dirty, but it does not matter what we think. We are not weak and bad people because of that. It's not us, it's just our ego. We need to look at it as a separate entity because he is not us. Only our actions matter in the end, what we say and do, what we create or destroy. If the ego tells us that it is best to cheat and thus easily achieve our goal, the decision is up to us to whether to put it in action or leave it at the thought level. If we are afraid of change, will we believe it or implement the change we intuitively know it is necessary, despite the fear? That is why we should let these thoughts and emotions pass us by as if they were not ours and speak and behave correctly. And that will lead us to inner experiences and clarity. Only persistently correct and truthful spoken words and done deeds. Right deeds are the key to silencing the ego. My name is Zoran Salopek, and in the next episode we will find out exactly how to silence the ego.